Hi, everybody. Welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. I got a comment from the Civic Republic military, and they said 14 temples coming this conference. And this comment just caught my eye, and I was thinking, okay, how did this person come up with this number? Is it because we're about to hit a milestone? And I looked at how many have been announced so far, and I think that we are. I did reply to this comment, but for some reason, YouTube's not letting me see my reply. It does show this person's reply, NateTron97. He's responding to me. Oh, I wouldn't mind that. Didn't even realize we were that close already. And I'm like obsessed with temples, laugh out loud. Yeah, same here. So 14 would not get us to the next milestone. Again, I don't know if this was just kind of like a random guess or something like that, but I realized that I needed to put together a new spreadsheet. I got to do it. I don't know how else to keep track of all this information, you guys. It's the best way that I know how to do it. Okay, so right now, so this spreadsheet is called Temples Announcements. A lot of times we focus on dedication dates, right? And I have another spreadsheet for that, but like in the background, my entire channel, I feel like I've been a little bit more interested in announcement dates and who announces the temples. And so I have two spreadsheets. I'll explain them in just a minute. Column C has like the number per. Okay, so on this spreadsheet, what I did is I did the number of temples announced at a time. So it's not by year. It's not necessarily by general conference. It's by just the actual dates. And they haven't always been announced in general conference. There's many temples that have not been announced during general conference. So this one is by specific date. Column C, when you highlight the whole thing, you have this function down here on the spreadsheet that gives you the sum of what you've highlighted. So we're at 382 temples that have been announced, are under construction, or already in operation. So the next milestone is going to be 400. And to get to that number, 18 temples need to be announced. And that's what I put in my comment. Maybe the Civic Republic military was thinking 400. I'm not sure. But I was like, I think it's going to be 18 because in the past, I've seen President Hinckley and I've seen President Nelson do this, where they want to get to these nice round numbers in these big milestones. I have another spreadsheet for that we're going to look at. This was a very enlightening exercise that I did. I felt like, oh, this can be such a simple video, but it involved a lot of data entry and it took a while, but it was worth it because we're going to use this in the future. Okay, so I have a chart here, a graph, and this is what it looks like. Again, this is not by year; it's just by day, the day that these temples were announced, and so you can definitely tell that we're in a different. You can definitely tell that we're in a different phase. I think that's how everybody would interpret this. If you gave this just to some random stranger, they'd be like, seems like something changed around 2018. So you might be thinking, well, what about President Hinckley? Well, like I just said earlier, not all temples have been in the past announced during General Conference. All these right here, or at least like most of them, all this right here is President Hinckley. It'll be more apparent when we look at the other spreadsheet where I do it by year, so we can see it that way. And then right here, this would be the President Kimball timeframe about. That's something I need to add to this spreadsheet. I need to, like, with some of my other timeline spreadsheets, I have who was president of the church during these dates. I'll add that later, but I'm pretty sure that this is President Kimball. So it's pretty dramatic. Let's go ahead and look at the other spreadsheet, which does it just by year. And with this spreadsheet and this graph, you can see President Hinckley a lot easier right here. This is President Hinckley. Right here is mostly President Monson and then President Nelson. And so when we look at it like this, we've got to think about what President Nelson just said last October in his general conference talk, which was all about the second coming. Okay. This right here, according to President Nelson and others, all these temples have to do with the second coming. If you were to go back in time here's the announcement for the Salt Lake Temple. If you're to go back in time and give this to the pioneers and tell them, okay, this is what it's going to look like going forward, and temples have everything to do with the second coming and preparing for the second coming, what conclusion do you think they would draw from looking at this graph? You might think that they would interpret this in such a way that they would say, yeah, it looks like the second coming is going to be sometime around the 2020s based on this. And it probably wouldn't surprise them that it would be after the year 2000. That would probably make a lot of sense to them. We have the seals in the book of Revelation. We have Doctrine and Covenants 77 that explains what the seals are. They have to do with 1,000-year periods. So it makes sense. It makes sense. Okay, so I actually want to read what President Nelson said. He says, "My dear brothers and sisters, do you see what is happening right before our eyes?" Well, President Nelson, I'm trying to help people see it in the form of spreadsheets and graphs. I wonder what the rest of the church would think if they saw this. It probably wouldn't really surprise people, but maybe it would. I feel like there's a lot of power in being able to visualize things. But at least by now, hopefully we all see what is happening right here, all this blue. Okay, my dear brothers and sisters, do you see what is happening right before our eyes? I pray that we will not miss the majesty of this moment. The Lord is indeed hastening his work. Why are we building temples at such an unprecedented pace? Why? Because the Lord has instructed us to do so. The blessings of the temple help to gather Israel on both sides of the veil. These blessings also help to prepare a people who will help prepare the world for the second coming of the Lord. Okay, so this is a really exciting development in the history of the church. This is very, very, very exciting. I want to highlight a few things. I already knew this, but it's so nice to have this on a spreadsheet now, so I can easily go back and refer to it. One thing that we've been interested in on this channel is, it's like it happens every general conference, really. You have a large number of temples that are announced, and then the question comes up, is this the most number of temples that have been announced at one time? Right now, the record is 20 temples on one given occasion. The first time was April General Conference of 2021, and then October General Conference of 2023. Both of those tie for first. And it begs the question, is the day coming where we're going to see more than that? More than 20 temples announced at the same time. 20 is already pretty staggering, I think. Are we going to see the day where there are more than 20 announced at a time? I think so. I do. Because this year, there's been all this talk about growth. Growth in the Kansas City area. Growth in the church at large. From May of last year to May of this year, that 12-month period saw the largest number of convert baptisms in church history. And I haven't verified this yet, but I feel like I've heard a couple people say that August as a month has had the largest number of convert baptisms for just a 1 month period. If you know if that's true, can you send it to me, send me an email, put it in the comments where I can find that. I don't know if that's true or not, or if that's just, rumor. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised though. I wouldn't be surprised. President Nelson said that we're just at the point of exponential growth. But that was back in 2018 when he said that. So my guess, this is just speculation, but my guess would be that within the next 5 years, I think that we will see one occasion that exceeds 20 announcements. I think that's pretty reasonable. Okay, so if 18 temples are announced, that's going to tie for second most. The only other time that we see 18 announced was October General Conference of 2022. Okay. So I do think that's what's going to happen. Why do I think that? Okay, well, that takes us to our next spreadsheet. This spreadsheet is called Temples Milestones. This is also a new spreadsheet. So these are 3 new spreadsheets. This is a timeline like they typically are. We'll start with this. April 5th, 1998. So this would have been April General Conference. And this is what President Hinckley said. Let's go to the talk. The name of the talk is New Temples to Provide Crowning Blessings of the Gospel. All right, he says, this will be a tremendous undertaking. Nothing even approaching it has ever been tried before. These will be in addition to, and then he announces 17 temples. And then after that, he says, I think we had better add 2 more to make it an even 100 by the end of this century, being 2,000 years since the coming of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ in the flesh. Doctrine and Covenants 20, verse 1. In this program, we are moving on a scale, the like of which we have never seen before. Well, yeah, up until that point, that was true. Up until that point. But the work is progressing, and well, let's look at this one instead by year, so we can see President Hinckley a little bit better. I remember growing up, so at this time, let's see, I guess I would have been pretty much in middle school, and then definitely by high school, I was really feeling it with all these temples being announced and constructed. When I went on my mission in 2004, I remember my mission president talking about this. He talked about the fact that President Hinckley is a builder and just how incredible it is that we've had so many temples announced. Back then, it blew my mind. And then things kind of quieted down during President Monson's time. And again, we can't see behind the scenes. We don't know exactly how all these things happen, but Elder Bednar said recently, well, I mean, like within the last few years, he's addressed that where people say, yeah, we didn't see a whole lot during President Monson's time. It's like, you know what? Revelation a lot of times is received well ahead of time. And it takes sometimes weeks, months, years, even decades before it comes to full fruition. So if you see things happening during President Nelson's time, likely a lot of that was already in the works under President Monson, Hinckley, Benson, and going back, depending on whatever the thing is. So we have to keep that in mind. But so you have President Hinckley here, and he just said, we've never seen anything like this. And that is definitely true. There are kind of like, from my point of view, 3 big phases or spikes in temple announcements. I better double check this. Spencer W. Kimball. Let me just check the dates. 73 to 85. Okay. Yeah. 73 to 85. So let's go back here. And yeah, this spike right here is solidly during his presidency, this first one. So that must have been mind-blowing for the church at that time. Because up until that point, the most that anybody hit, or the most temples that have been announced at any one time, let's see, you have like, come on, 3 in 1975, 2, wow, 2, oh my gosh, you guys, the work is hastening, in 1937. So then you have 6 at a time, 9 at a time, 5. So this must have been crazy back then. And then you get to President Hinckley, 27 on one occasion, or sorry, in 1 year, 17 another year. So this was crazy. But now, oh my gosh. We have 2 years that are tied for first, 2022 and 2023, both with 35 temples in each year. Last year, just a little bit less, 32. This year we're at 15. So let's see. So if it's 18, that would bring us to 33, which would not quite reach 35, but it would be 1 higher than last year. I don't like, as far as like the number of announcements, maybe you have some insight into this. I wonder what dictates the number. Like, obviously, in the first place, you have to have a need. There have to be enough members in a certain area, Melchizedek priesthood holders, tithe payers, and stuff like that. I think that those, just like stakes and wards, there's probably certain metrics that have to be met. So you'd have to have that. And I know that they have the goal of, what was it? It's like having 80% of the church within 1 hour, like 1 hour's drive to a temple. But it just makes me wonder, like, say back in like 2018, did they already know at that point that this many temples were going to be announced? And so were they like, okay, let's break it up. Obviously, let's not overwhelm the church and the world by suddenly announcing 1,000 temples in one general conference. I wish I was privy to that process, and I wish I could see like what's coming down the pipeline. I wish I knew, like, are we at a peak right now? Was this the peak? 2022 and 2023 with 35 each? Or is there a peak that's coming? Is it going to plateau? Is it going to drop off? I don't know. But these are really exciting times. So, oh my gosh, I digress. So, okay. So President Hinckley wanted 100 temples in operation by the end of the year 2000, and that happened. The 100th temple announced in the church was the Tuxtla Gutierrez, Mexico temple, which was announced by President Hinckley. I didn't see any news articles or anything mention that fact, but I counted it, and this would have been the 100th temple announced. And then October 1st of the year 2000, the Boston, Massachusetts temple was the 100th temple dedicated. I kind of feel like there's something to that, because Boston was a very important city in the American Revolution. I think along those lines, but I feel like there was something special about that. Okay, and then we fast forward to October 7th of 2018. To me, this would have been General Conference, and President Nelson announced the 200th temple of the church. So, let's see, 1999, the 100th temple, and then 2018, the 200th temple was announced. Okay. And then April 2022, President Nelson by himself during his presidency announced 100 temples by this point. Just him, 100 temples. President Hinckley, this is something I saw somewhere else. I have to add it somewhere. He announced something like 74 or maybe 79 during his presidency. So President Nelson passed that up April of 2022. Okay. And then The 300th temple of the church was announced in October 2022. So that's like the total number of temples announced. And then President Nelson dedicated the 200th temple of the church November 10th of last year. And he noted how from the beginning of the church until the year 2000, that's how long it took to dedicate 100 temples. And then just 24 years after that, already it's doubled in just 24 years. And then in this last general conference, President Nelson announced his 200th temple during his presidency. That is wild. And I have that on another spreadsheet that I've had for a while. This is a spreadsheet. If you want to see it, it's called Prophets Talks. You can access my spreadsheets anytime. The link is in the description box of each video. This tracks a number of things, not just President Nelson, but we have seen some really interesting things with his talks. We've seen some really interesting patterns. I'm not going to explain them right now, but sometimes it has to do with the renovation of the Salt Lake Temple. You have this one right here, where in the middle of these talks right here, I guess 21 talks, the very middle talk is the talk where he said that time is running out. The 70th temple that he announced as president of the church, the 70th one was the Ephraim, Utah temple. It's the only one that he announced outside of General Conference. I feel like it's a special temple. He was the one that was there for the groundbreaking. I think it's a special temple. But anyway, so we already knew this with the 200 temples that he's announced because I'm keeping track of that right here. Let me just remind myself. So before the Ephraim, Utah temple, let's see, 69. Well, yeah, of course, 69. And then after that, there's been like many more. I was just wondering if that was like in the middle of whatever. It was in the middle. Okay, never mind. That's not a thing. So I don't know. There's so many questions. He just turned 101. How much longer is he going to go? I feel like he's still doing fine. He's getting older, but it seems like for his age, he's still doing fine. How many more temples is he going to announce? I don't know. But this is crazy. It's amazing. It's wonderful. So, yeah, I think this is why I think that it's going to be 18 temples announced, because we've seen these different times where they've wanted to reach these round numbers. These are good numbers for like goal setting. They're good numbers to have like an impact on the church, to show the church, do you see what's happening before our very eyes? This is one way to help people see that. When you have that church news article come out, or newsroom article come out that says this will be the 400th temple announced, like there are now a total of 400 temples. So I think it's going to have a big impact, and I think it's a big milestone. And I don't know. I cannot believe what I have witnessed in my lifetime. But going through exercises like this definitely helps. I guess one last thing I want to mention, we talked about how it actually seems like up until President Nelson's presidency, the norm for announcing temples was not announcing them in General Conference. Now, it's harder for me to say when General Conference was, when you go back in time, because the format has changed over the years. It wasn't until, I don't know when, maybe it was the 70s or something, that you got to the format that we have now, where you only have sessions on Saturday and Sunday, and you do it by the first Sunday of April and October. I remember there was some point where that's when that started. And so when you go back in time, it gets a little bit more murky. And at some point, maybe I'll try and figure out exactly which temples were announced in General Conference and which ones were not. But for right now, you can just look at some of these non-April and non-October dates. And you can see, I mean, here we are in the 90s. This is President Hinckley's time. And you have all these temples announced. I don't know why they chose these days. December 21st, September 30th, January 13th. It's almost like maybe once, the budget allowed it, or once the study had been done, or once they made the determination, they're just like, okay, as soon as we know that we're going to do another temple, let's announce it right away. Let's get this going. Like maybe it was part of the hastening at that time. I don't know. I don't know how to explain this. Maybe it had to do with church finances, or maybe they just felt it'd be better to spread it out. Again, maybe they were worried about overwhelming the church and the world by just like announcing so many at one time, when up until this point, this is what things look like. Because again, you always have those people that are critics of the church. Oh, why are you spending so much money on temples? Why aren't you feeding the poor? Which we are. But we also have to have, our facilities. It is a religion. It's not just a social program. We try and do as much as we can, but these buildings are necessary for the ordinances that we perform inside them. And that's going to take you much further. It's going to take you into eternity rather than just being fed right now. Although we do take care of the temporal concerns here in mortality with Bishop Storehouse and the welfare program and donations and disaster relief and all that stuff. So it may be that back then, maybe they were just like, they didn't want to bring too much criticism, and so they kind of spread it out. I don't know. But it seems like, oh, I don't know, maybe 2010. It seems like maybe 2010, that's when it kind of solidified into temples being announced during General Conference, with a few exceptions. And actually, it seems like the only exception since that time, and maybe this is saying something, the only exception since that time appears to be the Ephraim, Utah temple, May 1st of 2021. You have to go back to January 25th of 2010 to see another temple that was not announced during General Conference, the Payson, Utah temple. But before that, that was just kind of the norm. I would like some answers on that, just for curiosity. But I love looking at this stuff. I love thinking about it. I'm excited for the future. I hope that you are too. If you don't have a temple within an hour's drive of where you live, I hope that one is coming to you soon. Let me know in the comments which temple you would like to see announced this General Conference. Whether it's, whether it would be one near you or just one that you would like to see in general. Back when I was living in Kansas, I lived an hour south of Wichita. And so if, me from back then was answering the question right now, I would have said the Wichita, Kansas temple. And it was announced. I went there. I took a video of it. It's under construction right now, but it did happen as I was making this, doing this channel. I was very excited about that. They also announced one for Barcelona. That's the mission that I served in, the Spain-Barcelona mission. When they announced that at the same time that they announced the Wichita, Kansas temple. And that blew me away because it felt like it was still going to be a long time before Spain had another temple aside from the Madrid temple. And then they also announced in that same conference the Austin, Texas temple. And in the Army, that would have been my closest temple. It would have been about an hour away from Fort Hood. So let me know what temple you would like to see next. For me, let me think here. Well, no, for me, that's easy. Don't answer this. Give me a real answer. I mean, you can add this too, but give me a real answer. But I want to see the Temple and Independence built. I'd also like to see Far West, but if we're going with just more, probably realistic possibilities, I would like to see another one here in Missouri. Maybe Columbia, maybe another one here in the Kansas City area. Maybe one in Independence, just not at the Temple lot. Maybe that's possible. I don't know. We just had 3 new stakes that were created this year, and it feels like more and more people are coming here, and the area is growing. So, yeah, why not? Why not have another one here in the Kansas City area? I would love that. Okay, but that's gonna be for this one. I'll talk to you guys later.